Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Been a little while since we've been on. We've had this going on, that going on. I was traveling. Clark had COVID, so we've haven't been able to be on in a while. But it's glad to be back. Ready for football season. Super excited. We just had our first day of college football, even though it was pretty much a dud. I don't understand why. I don't understand what week zero means. I have no idea why we're doing that, but there were games, so it's good. And we're a couple weeks here. We'll have both college and pro football going. So how's it going on your end, Clark?
Yeah, good. I I didn't really watch any college football yesterday because what's the point? It's like you really want to watch what was it, Air Force versus uh, Notre Dame, or was that
Navy
it was
versus Notre
Navy?
Dame.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the game was over
No
in,
offense
in
to the
about the
Navy. I don't want to watch the.
right. No, the game was over in the first quarter. We watched. It was pretty much it was pretty much a complete waste of time. It was cool to see a game in Ireland, but it didn't, as we thought, completely irrelevant. And this is
Well,
one of my
it was interesting because so Dan Patrick, his whole show went to Ireland, and they had Will
yep.
Ferrell with them, and so like all week on his radio show, they were like talking to Will Ferrell, and he was telling funny stories about stuff. So that was kind of cool. They were in Ireland, like doing the show from there. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't really have any interest in watching the game. So
yeah, it was a crap game. And that's we were talking about this earlier. It's really sad that college football gets 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks without the NFL on, and they don't do anything to take advantage of it. It's really
yeah,
sad and pathetic. You would never run a sports league this way. We've got all eyes are on us. We got nothing else on. Let's put our worst games on. Doesn't make a whole lot of
yeah.
sense. But anyway, we'll do a college football preview, and I'll give you my picks for the playoffs and all of that. But first, we're going to talk about some NFL preseason stories. So first off, Trey Lance got traded from the San Francisco 49ers to the Dallas Cowboys for a fourth round pick. And, there's been a lot of consternation about this whole thing with the 49ers and their quarterback situation. And my opinion from the beginning is it really doesn't matter. None of these guys are franchise quarterbacks. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, whatever it is, like it doesn't really matter. None of these guys make any difference, as far as them winning more or less games. The 49ers are just looking for a game manager, and that's all they need because their team is so good that they just need somebody to do what the coach wants them to do. I'm confused about this trade. Like San Francisco gave up, three number one picks for this guy, and they just basically like, we'll just get him out of here for a fourth round pick. They basically just, all right, we're done. We're done with this, which okay, I mean I get it. The guy is probably never going to be able to play for you because the 49ers are a really good team and they need somebody who's going to be able to play well, and Trey Lance can't do it right now. I don't understand this from the Dallas Cowboys perspective. They already have Dak Prescott. They still have Cooper Rush, and they signed him to a new contract.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they traded a
he's a
fourth.
good backup. He's fine.
Right. They traded a fourth. Gave up a fourth round pick to get a third string quarterback who basically in the NFL now is basically an emergency quarterback. Like, really? Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The guy's never going to play for you. He has zero opportunity to play. And then, the thing is, Dallas gets all kinds of attention. So all this attention is going to be, oh, what's happening with Trey? Everybody's going to be asking him questions every day. What's going on with Trey Lance when there's nothing to talk about? So most likely, he probably gets cut, before the season's over. So I'm just confused. And then I think you described it perfectly. You said this is a typical Jerry Jones move. It gets headlines, but it has no substance at all. There's nothing going on here. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. So that part's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. But as far as the 49ers and Trey Lance, I mean, the from the start, them moving up to get him just didn't make any sense, right? Like I'm not saying I was against them drafting a quarterback, but like he clearly wasn't ready to play yet. He was a project. Okay, so and I'm against moving up higher in the draft for a project, especially high up in the first round. Like that just doesn't make
Yep.
any sense. So, you give up stuff to do that, and then and Nick Wright was complaining, oh, they mismanaged this whole situation. I mean, there's aspects of that, but I mean, to be honest, from the beginning, I didn't get what they were doing, and then it's like, okay, so he's not ready to play the first year. That's fine. He's a project, like, of course, you know. And then the second year, it's like, okay, we're gonna have him in there, and then he ends up getting hurt, which is not their fault. Just it happened, but
Right.
that kind of created a problem. And then Brock Purdy comes in, and he's fine. You know, so, and then they're able to get Sam Darnold. So it's like, well, we don't really need this guy because he needs to play more so we can see what he is, but he's not been able to play. So, and for their team, it didn't make any sense to draft a project because you need a guy that can play right away. So back then when we were like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going to draft Mac Jones. I can actually kind of defend it now because, with that team, he could have come right in and played. I mean, he came right in and played for New England, and he was, solid. He was fine. He's not nothing special, but with like the 49ers, they don't need anything special. He can just, distribute the ball. And they have a bunch of playmakers, and Kyle Shanahan's really creative, so like that actually makes a little more sense. But yeah, I think that the bigger thing that I was thinking about earlier today was, um, San Francisco, they've had a lot of success, but are they going to win the Super Bowl? Because, Shanahan's been there, what, like 5 years now? So, I mean, if they don't win the Super Bowl in the next few years, it's going to kind of be like, well, what are you guys doing? Because I understand the roster is really good, and I understand the perspective of, well, we just need like a point guard who can just distribute the ball, as the quarterback. And it's like, okay, fine, but that hasn't proven to win a Super Bowl. And you can be like, well, we're in the NFC. It's like, okay, fine. You're in the NFC, but in order to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat a team from the AFC. Or you're going to have to beat, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or, Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence or, there's probably a couple others you can throw in. So, at a certain point, it kind of becomes great. You keep making it to the NFC Championship game, but, in order to really win, it's the same thing with Mike McDaniel, who came from San Francisco. It's like, oh, well, I just need Tua to run the offense. And it's like, okay, fine, but I mean, there's a limit to how far you can go with that, particularly in the AFC. So,
Yeah, I don't think the thing is like the 49ers were trying to get an upgrade at their quarterback position, and they haven't done any better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
yeah,
I mean, Garoppolo's still the best quarterback that they could have had. Now that's nice that they got a guy cheaper than that. Okay, that's nice. But it's just they tried to get better than they were, and it didn't work out for them. And I'm sorry to break it to everybody. Brock Purdy is not a franchise quarterback, okay? The guy's not going to be playing there 5 years from now. So it's just kind of ridiculous. You can continue to turn it over and talk to me about, oh, it's great they found this guy in the 7th round. It's a miracle they found this guy. This wasn't, by design. They stumbled into it, which, hey, good for you. Like you gotta get lucky in the NFL sometimes. I get it. But yeah, they I don't think, they took a shot. Like they took a shot and they missed. But I think I go back to my thing I said, I've been saying for 2 years now. All the teams that passed on Justin Fields are going to regret it. I just think if the 49ers just take Fields, for God's sakes, he can do everything you need him to do. Plus, he's a super athlete. So
right.
I just think they kind of missed the boat on that. Tried to get cute, and they really did. They certainly did not need to move all the way up to the 3rd pick in the draft in order to do that. Now, as a Dolphins fan, I appreciate that they did, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right. Well, the other thing is, so just on a larger point about drafting project quarterbacks really high in the draft, I'm against it. I don't think it's a good idea because it's just like, what are the odds it's going to turn into, it's going to be worth what you gave up to get, is the guy going to be that good? Like Anthony Richardson for Indianapolis, that's fine because he's actually going to be able to play. So then you can actually see what he is, because and Indianapolis is bad. It doesn't matter. They can lose games, whatever. They can just keep playing him, and you can see, how good he might potentially be. But I mean, I don't know. What are the odds he's really going to be all that great? What are the odds any project like that ends up being really good? Like Josh Allen, I guess, was a project, and he ended up turning into something. But I mean, it took 3 years for him to really, and he had to play a lot. So if you can do that, great. But then it just raises a point like, well, what if it doesn't work? And I mean, I understand that you got to kind of take risks sometimes, and whatever else. I mean, I guess maybe you could say Patrick Mahomes, maybe some people sort of thought he was a reach, but I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, we really like this guy, and it's like, yeah, but you're drafting a guy who you don't really know what he's really going to be. And I mean, granted, you can say that about a lot of other guys, but with a lot of other guys, I feel like you have some sense that, like, all right, the floor is this, the ceiling might be this. We'll see if we get there. So
well, but there's a big difference between the Chiefs moving up to the 10th pick to get Patrick Mahomes and moving up to number 1 or in the top 3. There's a big difference in cost between the two. What Kansas City did was a calculated risk. They had Alex Smith. All right, why not take a shot at it? This guy might be a home run. But that's different than the Carolina Panthers giving up, players and picks and all kinds of stuff to get Bryce Young. And, we talked about this the other day, and I don't understand. Like, I'm not doing what Carolina did, where it's like, we're going to give up all this stuff for a quarterback that's, 5'10". Like, I can't get behind that, because you're drafting a guy who's already a risk. Like, you're taking a huge risk with this guy just being able to play in games in the NFL. Like, at least Indianapolis, I know they're bad, but they didn't have to move up. And they took a guy who, yeah, he's a project, but he's a super athlete. So if it works out, it's an ultimate home run. I just don't, even if Bryce Young and CJ Stroud work out, I still don't think they're going to be great. So what did you do that for? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to move up like these teams do. But
the other thing is, like, just with like Trey Lance, they. I understand the athletic ability, like it adds an extra dimension, but they needed him to be accurate. Right. The way their offense runs, like it's the same thing with the Dolphins. Like, Tua is accurate, at least. He's too small and he doesn't have great arm strength, but if he's accurate, you can work with it and you can win games. But Trey Lance wasn't even accurate. So it's like, right. I mean, with Indianapolis, I think you kind of have to. Now they got Shane Steichen, so I guess you kind of go, all right, we're going to have to run some sort of, hybrid offense or something like that, and that could work, if you know what you're doing. But I feel like a lot of the problem is teams will do this and then they don't set things up correctly. You draft Justin Fields and then you fire the coach after 1 year, so it's like. Yeah, there's that whole aspect of it where you bring them into a place and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So,
yeah, so I think it's it's definitely an interesting discussion. I just don't. Trey Lance has no chance to succeed in Dallas at all. Like, he's never gonna see the field, because if the prospect of him actually playing gets out, the media is gonna go nuts. It's gonna be a whole storm of all kinds of stuff going on. So you can't even, like, if you're Dallas, I don't even see, like, you can't put him on the field. Like, you never will as long as Dak Prescott's healthy. But there's nothing. I don't understand what did you get. Like, what did you give up a 4th-round pick for? You gave up a 4th-round pick for a guy who might be on your practice squad? Like, I just don't, it makes absolutely no sense for the Cowboys. Why would you give stuff up for that? I can't figure it out. But we'll move on from that. Look, my overriding thoughts on this, and I know, Clark, you agree with me. We don't watch preseason football games. I'm sorry. Okay? Like, I'm not watching this amateurish version of football that has no basis in any kind of reality. Okay, they're playing against vanilla defenses. All the starters don't play at the same time. They're not even playing all the starting offensive linemen. So I don't understand how you're supposed to get a read. Like, it cracks me up watching these shows all week where they're breaking down how the starting quarterback played in this preseason game bullshit. I just, it's completely pointless. It serves no purpose. Don't try to tell me it means something, because it doesn't mean anything. Like Denver, the Denver Broncos came out in the first game, didn't look good on offense. They looked a lot better in the second game, and people are making judgments based on what they're seeing in these preseason games. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know. Like, it's absolute nonsense. You don't know what Denver's going to look like. You don't know if their offense is going to be good. And even if it does, it's probably going to take some time to get there. So I think these preseason games are just to go out and try to get a rhythm. I think that's all it is. Go out and try to get a rhythm, get used to the guys that you're playing with. I think that's all it's for. And most teams don't even play their starters more than one game anymore. So preseason to me is completely meaningless. I haven't watched it in 20 years, and I'm not going to start now. I don't watch preseason football. I don't watch the Pro Bowl. I don't watch a lot of this nonsense. I don't watch bad college football games. Like,
well, this makes us the weirdos here, because so many people do watch preseason, which, no, I totally agree with you, but it's just kind of funny. Like, people, like, there's probably a lot of people who, if we were to say, I think preseason is useless, I don't even watch it, they'd be like, why not? And it'd be like, well, because the games don't matter. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's football. It's like, yeah, I'm not watching high school football. Like, what? I don't.
Right.
It's like, you want to watch some really, slow bastardized, some totally different bastardized version of football. It's like, no, I got other stuff I can watch. Well, what do you mean? It's like, I don't know, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, like HBO.
It's a gigantic lie that America will just watch any kind of football and it doesn't matter. That's just a gigantic lie. We don't watch any kind of football. We watch major college football, and we watch the NFL regular season and playoff games. We don't watch all of this other stuff. So look at the TV ratings. Like, don't try to tell me that it's really important and really valuable. If it was, people would watch it. They don't.
Yeah.
So no, at this point, like, I'm not interested in your brand, your appetizer that you're trying to sell me on. Just give me the damn steak, give me the filet or the prime rib or whatever you want. I'm not having Salisbury steak from the frozen food aisle at the grocery store. Like, it's just, sorry, I've reached the point. Like, I couldn't care less.
Like, I'll compare it to, like, pregame stuff. I've pretty much lost all taste for watching any pregame stuff. It's like, tell me when the game starts, and then I will do something else until, like, 1 minute before the game starts, and then I will turn the game on and watch the game. It's like, I don't – and by the way, no offense to College Game Day. Sometimes they have interesting stuff on there. Sometimes it's kind of funny, but I just don't really care. Same thing with NFL, pregame stuff or Super Bowl. It's like, I don't want to watch any of this crap. I don't want to watch you, screw around for a few hours while we wait for the actual thing that I want to watch. Like, just – I don't know. It's people go on.
No,
and
you're correct.
I get the damn. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, in College Game Day this week, they didn't go on a road trip. They were just in the studio, and it sucked. College Game Day is about the experience, not because you're going to learn anything. There's about a half an hour of it. I watch it every week, but there's about a half an hour of it that's like, oh, you might get some material out of. The other 2.5 hours are just having a party. Which is fine. I'm all for it. But yeah, everybody was upset, that's what happened. College Game Day wasn't very good this week. Everybody's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they didn't have it on the regular ESPN. I think it was on ESPN2 or ESPNU, one of the other ones. So they didn't even have it on the main ESPN. They had an F1 race on, and everybody was upset. And it's like, you really didn't miss much. It was not, but I totally agree with you. I think this is crap. I'll watch some YouTube highlights of what the Dolphins do. I watched what Tua did in the Texans game, which I had mixed feelings on. There was some good and some bad. I didn't watch. And the thing is, like, my contention with these preseason games is they don't mean anything good or bad. I'm not saying if your team plays well in the preseason game, that doesn't mean they're going to be good. And if they play badly, that doesn't mean they're bad. It really doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And that's my point. These are teams trying to just figure stuff out, trying to figure out who the last 15 to 20 guys on their roster are going to be. And the rest of it is a bunch of nonsense.
The rest of it's just get out there, run around, get some reps, sweat a little bit, and then so you're kind of ready for the start of the season. That's really it.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are my team this year that I'm just like, you could convince me of anything. I have no idea which way this is going to go. It all sounds good. Like last year, by the way, Denver last year sounded good. Oh, they got Russell Wilson. They got a good defense. Look at all this talent they got on offense. Should be fine, right? Disaster. So this year, okay, they got Sean Payton. Okay. Russell Wilson dropped a little bit of weight. It looks like he's moving around a little bit. Okay, it all sounds like this should work. But I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen with Russell Wilson, and Denver's in deep shit. Like, if this doesn't work out, they have Russell Wilson signed up for the next 5 years to a huge contract. So they literally, like, it's not like, oh, if it doesn't work, we'll just bail. This has to work. So there is a lot of pressure on Denver to figure this out and make the playoffs last year after the debacle that was last year. So that, to me, Clark, that's the one team. Like, I think I have a feel for most teams in the NFL. You could convince me of anything. You could tell me Denver's going to win 10, 11 games. You could tell me they're going to win 5. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's fair. Because a lot of it, comes down to the offensive line. Now they got like a receiver out for a while. And then we'll see how, is Russell Wilson still, a top 10 or 12 quarterback, or is he just kind of bad now? If he's bad,
right.
They got problems because they can't really move on from that contract. So we'll see. I mean, it's not, to be honest, I don't really think it's all that interesting. Like them and also like Las Vegas. I don't really think Las Vegas is going to be all that good. I don't think Josh McDaniels is a good coach. I think he's kind of proven it, and I think this year will kind of put the nail in the coffin as far as, this guy really doesn't know what he's doing as a head coach. Your quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, and I mean, good luck with that because he's going to get hurt. So I just, I don't know why you had to move on from Derek Carr. I don't think McDaniels knows what he's doing, and I think that'll be kind of proven. I think that division is between the Chiefs and the Chargers. I mean, that's it. It's between those two teams. So.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Denver's interesting just because of the variety of outcomes. I feel like I have a handle on most teams in the league.
Yeah, I think Vegas is like a 500, 6, 7, 8 win team probably, or
right.
Potentially worse. Given that I don't think McDaniels is a good coach, but yeah, Denver. Maybe you see a scenario where they win 10 games, maybe, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I could. That's what I mean. I could see a scenario where they're pretty good and they make the playoffs. I could also see them just suck, just being bad, just being terrible.
Yeah.
And who knows? And we're going to be sitting here going, "What the hell's going on?" And it's one of those things. They should be pretty good. The defense allowed 14 points a game last year. Like they should be able to win games, But I have no idea what's happening. The other thing was that I wanted to talk about the AFC East because I think there's wild opinions going on all over the place with that whole division, and I think the Jets are completely overrated. I think the Jets are completely overrated because of their expectations. The expectations of New York and Jets fans is that the Jets are going to win 12 or 13 games, and I think it's an absolute crock. I don't see it with this team at all. I think it's great that the Jets hopefully have solid quarterback play now, and they can, they can hopefully be a solid team. But I think the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots are all going to win between 7 and 10 games. I think that's what their destiny is. I don't think their ceilings are really high. I think their floors are pretty high, but I think their ceilings are pretty low, and I think that's kind of what you're going to get. All those teams really could go either way. I think New England is mediocre, as we would expect. Anybody trying to tell me that the Dolphins are going to be awesome, I think the Dolphins are just going to be what they have been the last 3 years. I think the Dolphins probably win the same amount. They probably end up 9-8 again for the third year in a row because that's just kind of who they are.
All right, here we'll keep going. So the Dolphins. Oh, okay. So yeah, the Dolphins. Yeah, it's really been kind of hilarious, all the Dolphins hype that we've had, for I guess we're going on a couple years now. Yeah, so like you were pointing out before the podcast, Tua's the 17th best quarterback in the league, probably 17, 18, 19, 16, somewhere.
Well, no, hold on. Before we go to that, just hang on. So everybody, just where we're getting this. So Mike Sando writes for The Athletic. He does a column every year called The Quarterback Tiers, and he lists he talks to 50 people that work in the NFL. There's like 15 coaches, 10 general managers, a whole bunch of scouts and personnel people, and he talks to these 50 people, and then he has them rank the quarterbacks. And then once he gets those results, he releases them to us. Okay, so this is not just pulled out of our butt here. Okay, Tua was ranked 17th by people that work in the NFL. So that's where he's at. So whatever you're hearing from anybody else, just keep in mind they ranked him as the 17th best quarterback. Go ahead.
Now, okay, yeah. The other thing is, now I commented on some post on Facebook yesterday. And someone was like, "Yeah, well, Tua made the Pro Bowl last year." I'm like, "No, he didn't." And then they pointed me to a link where actually he did, but he made it as like an alternate, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, he wasn't selected originally. It's just people didn't play or whatever else, so then he went in. So, yeah, right. I thought that was kind of fun. So people are basically they're finding all these like random stats. They're finding, he's the league leader in passer rating. It's like, okay, like what does that mean? And then he made the Pro Bowl, right. And then like he leads in these different, and then these categories are always like, well, he completed this many passes in the fourth quarter or whatever, or his completion percentage is this, or his whatever his success in these clutch situations was whatever. And I'm just like, dude, don't give me that crap. I watched those games. Like, come on. There were a few clutch situations he was good in, and most of the rest of the time he threw interceptions, or he got sacked, or he got injured, or come on. And the other thing is that are we focused on the offensive line enough? I mean, Teron Armstead, he was getting hurt before the Dolphins had him last year. He got hurt last year. He already got hurt in the preseason. It's not like they really fixed the rest of the offensive line. Now, if they can run the ball well, okay, that kind of fixes some things. But then the other problem is, and you saw this in that preseason game against the Texans, and this is the Texans. This is a clear indication of kind of who Tua is. He throws that terrible interception. Why did he throw that interception? Well, he's rolling out. He's trying to do way too much. And he's been doing this since college. He's done it in the NFL plenty. At this point, we're 4 years in. This is who he is. This is what he's going to do every now and then. He's going to try to do too much, and he's going to get himself in trouble. But then when they got the ball back, you saw that other drive, a lot of short passes. He threw one 15-yard completion in there. They ran the ball a little bit. That's what you're going to have to do. And there's plenty of teams where they can have a lot of success, kind of playing that way. But, when it comes to playing really good teams and we need Tua to, do extra stuff or have a comeback or have a fourth quarter drive, it's probably not going to happen. And this is kind of what we've seen from him throughout his career. So, it's not really surprising to me. Now, is the defense going to be better? I would think so. I mean, because Vic Fangio is a really smart defensive mind, and I think if you're putting everyone in the right spot to succeed, then yeah, they'll do pretty well. But I mean, it's not like the Dolphins' schedule is all that easy. So it's like, people are like, oh, well, they could win 12 or 13 games. It's like, okay, well, if they win 12 or 13 games, they're only going to lose like 5 or 6. And it's like, you really think that's going to be the case? I mean, it's not like Tua plays all that well against the Patriots, even though the Patriots are limited. Belichick seems to do a pretty good job against Tua. The Jets, he didn't have to play the Jets last year because he was hurt both times. The Jets are, they got a lot of talent. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I mean, they're pretty darn good, so they're going to be pretty tough to play. You still got the Bills, and people are like, oh, well, the Super Bowl window is closing. Look, I don't really care about that. All I know is that, the Bills, they beat the Dolphins once. They should have beaten them the second time. I mean, the only reason the Dolphins won the first game was because of South Florida humidity. So.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the bigger lies that people are telling now in the NFL is that when Tua was healthy, he was really good. It's not true. It's just not the truth. He played 12 games. He was really good for about 4 of them. So, like this idea that, oh, well, when he was healthy, he was mediocre. Like we need to just be honest about what it is. The guy is all over the place. And the thing is, we go to completion percentage. Completion percentage is such a joke. You know why? Because if you have a series of downs, you complete one pass, okay? You don't get the first down. Guess what? You don't get to throw any more passes. Okay? So Tua can get on these streaks where he completes 8, 9, 10, 11 passes in a row, which keeps his completion percentage up. Okay, but then we're forgetting the 4 or 5 drives every game where he goes 3 and out because he can't make anything happen. So it's so funny how these stats are used to prove ridiculous arguments. You can have a good completion percentage and not score points. Like it's not that hard to do.
Especially
people
in today's
do it all
NFL,
the time in the
NFL
NFL now
really
because
completion. Yeah,
exactly. If you completed 65% of your passes in 1985. Like you were really doing something, right? Because those were higher level throws. If you complete 65% passes in the NFL now, I mean, half of them are screen passes or in the backfield or, little short bubble screens that everybody completes. So yeah, it's a bunch of nonsense. But what do you think? I mean, what do you think about my AFC East take? I mean, I think the Jets, the Patriots, and the Dolphins are all going to win between 7 and 10 games. So what do you think?
I think that's probably about right. I mean the Patriots. I would say they're probably the 4th best team because they don't really have anything on offense that's special. And I just think they'll be in games because they'll play really good defense and they'll play really smart. So but to me that translates to 7, 8 wins. Maybe less. I mean, who knows if they get some injuries or whatever. There's always variance with that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I would still put the Bills, And look, you can criticize the Bills. There's plenty of, things you can say. I mean, they don't run the ball well enough. They're too reliant on Josh Allen. All that's fine. And that's true. But, if you're asking me who I'm taking, I'm taking them instead of the Dolphins or the Jets, or particularly the Patriots. So.
Yeah, I think it's a bit ridiculous. So yeah, I don't really. Yeah, any other NFL stories you're interested in? I think that's all I really had to. I was really.
I mean, is anybody interested in the awesome quarterback competition between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask? The fact that there was airtime that was wasted on that was pretty ridiculous. I mean, I was just like they're arguing on first things first. It should be Baker Mayfield. It's like, who cares? Like the Tampa Bay is not good. Like what?
Yeah, no. Tampa Bay's entire goal for their whole season should be how do we get Caleb Williams out of college? That's all Tampa should be thinking about. And I know it's blasphemous to talk about teams tanking in the NFL. Let me tell you something. Teams need to start doing it. I don't know why this is such a struggle for everybody. Who gives a rat's ass? You don't think I'd be much happier if the Dolphins had tanked and gotten Joe Burrow? Like, it's just this idea that, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Do you want to win games or not? You know, it's like it's so ridiculous. Everybody acts like, oh, it's all about winning. Not for Tampa, you know, not for Houston, not for Indianapolis. You know, those teams should not be about winning games this year. It's all about just getting your quarterback better. You know, so it just blows my mind when teams just don't have their priorities straight. Which explains why they suck anyway. All right, so let's do a little college football preview. I'm just gonna go through. I'm gonna go just by the Power Five, just go through each conference and give a little snippet on what I think is gonna happen. So, first of all, ACC. I mean the battle's going to come down to Clemson and Florida State, basically for the conference title. Florida State's kind of up and coming now. Clemson's got a new offensive coordinator. They got Lincoln Riley's brother as their offensive coordinator now, and they've got Cade Klubnik as the quarterback. You know, DJ, whatever his name is, went to Oregon State. So Clemson's going to try to be, this year try to break out a new offense, because if they can score points, they're going to be a really good team because the defense is pretty good. But I think Florida State's definitely got a shot at it. They play Clemson in Clemson like the end of like week before the end of September. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's kind of a two-team conference. I think Florida State and Clemson both have a good shot at the playoff. We'll see what happens. As far as the Big 12 goes, I mean, look, Texas is the best team in the Big 12, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the conference. I can see people already are falling for it. People this week, people trying to predict it, and everybody's falling in love with Texas like they always do in August. And I think it's a serious. I think they've got some issues. I do not think, like, I was watching Crane and Company, and one of the guys had Texas going undefeated, and it just made me laugh because I'm like, Texas is not going to go undefeated. Like I don't think they're going to beat out. They're not going to beat Alabama in 2 weeks when they play them, and they're going to blow some conference game that they should win, but we'll see. I think they have the best team in the Big 12, but you can't tell me what's going to happen in that conference, because every week it's something. TCU, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Baylor. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen there. So I think Texas is the best team, but I put absolutely no faith in them to do anything, because Texas is the same thing every year. It's just like the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody tries to talk me into them every year that they're back, and every year they're not back. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that conference will be really fun. I think the Pac-12 will be the most fun, because I think between USC, Oregon, Washington, and Utah, you're going to have 4 teams that are pretty evenly matched. Utah's won the conference the last 2 years in a row, and I think all of these teams have a shot. I don't think any of them are going undefeated, because once we get to mid-October, they're all going to start playing each other, and I think they're gonna beat each other up pretty good. I know everybody wants to fall in love with USC because they're ranked 6th in the preseason rankings. Doesn't mean a thing to me. I don't think I still think USC's defense is highly suspect. They gave up 28 points to Fresno State yesterday, so they're gonna give up points. So we'll see how it goes. But Utah's quarterback is out. So I don't know how soon he's going to be able to come back. And the other 2 teams, Oregon, Washington, have really good quarterbacks and really good teams. So I think that conference is going to beat itself up. If there's a team that can get out of it with 1 loss, they might have a shot at the playoff, but I don't think anybody's getting out of there undefeated. I don't think there's any chance of that happening. The Big Ten. Last year, the Big Ten, before we add everybody else in, obviously, look, I mean, come on. This is going to be an Ohio State-Michigan conference, just like it has been forever, and that's kind of the way it's going to be. Michigan, we're not going to know anything about Michigan until November. They literally their schedule is a complete joke. They barely leave their state for the first 2 months of the season. So Michigan's going to roll over just about everybody. Ohio State at least has to go to Notre Dame near the end of September, so we'll get to see what happens with them. But I think it's this is one of the things I think is going on. People are just handing it to Michigan, like, oh, Michigan's just like they're just clearly better than Ohio State. And I don't know, like if anybody goes back and watches that game, it was a one-score game with 7 minutes to go. And Ohio State had a third
Yeah.
down. The receiver was wide open, dropped the ball. Otherwise, they probably score a touchdown on that drive. Then Michigan runs, just has 2 running plays where they just absolutely destroy Ohio State and run for 70-yard touchdowns. So that game was right there to be had, and you saw how good Ohio State was when they almost beat Georgia. So this idea that we should just hand it to Michigan, I think, is ridiculous. I know Ohio State has to figure out their quarterback thing, but they've got 3 or 4 weeks to figure it out. So I think that it's going to end up coming down to the 2 of them. The game is at Michigan. I think this is Jim Harbaugh's best team. So I give Michigan the best chance. Also in this conference, I think Wisconsin is going to be really interesting. They got Luke Fickell as the head coach now. They're going to actually throw the ball. It sounds like they're going to do some kind of spread air raid type thing with Wisconsin, which is highly unusual. So we'll see if that makes a difference. Whoever wins the other side of the other division in the Big Ten doesn't matter. They're going to lose to Ohio State or Michigan, but I am interested to see if that makes any difference. And then we got the SEC, and I think that I really like LSU. I think LSU is going to be fantastic. They had Danny Cannell was on with Ryan Russillo the other day, and they were talking about this, and they're kind of like downplaying LSU. Well, I don't know about Jaden Daniels, and he seemed to struggle a little bit in the early part of the season, and they got blown out by Tennessee, and they lost that game to Texas A&M. And does nobody realize LSU is probably going to get better when Brian Kelly's there his second year? Do they not think that they'll probably get better with the second year with the same players and the same coach? Like it's just kind of like I don't understand why that seems to be the case. I think I know people are now trying to get on, like people think it's sexy now to jump on Alabama because everybody thinks that Alabama isn't any Alabama's not what they were. And I was telling my dad this yesterday that I don't think Alabama's any worse. I just think everybody else got better. I just think that Alabama had such a stranglehold on everything else. And now, Georgia takes 2 or 3 guys every year. LSU takes 2 or 3 guys every year. Tennessee's taking I think the coaching in the SEC is so much better than it was 10 years ago. And I think that, that's kind of what's happened to Alabama. And for the first time in a while, Alabama doesn't have an NFL quarterback. They've had a first or second round. The last 4 quarterbacks for Alabama were drafted in the first or second round. And, Bryce Young went number 1. So Alabama just doesn't have that NFL type quarterback this year, so it's going to be a little more difficult for them. And I think that's kind of my take for a lot of these teams. It's just going to be a little more difficult when you don't have an established quarterback and you're trying to figure it out. So I think Georgia wins the East. I think LSU is going to win the West, and I think it'll come down to them in the championship game. I just think I think LSU's got a handle on it. I think they're going to get better. I think their talent is ridiculous. So as long as they just hold it together, they're going to beat just about everybody. So so I think it's going to be really interesting. So my playoff picks, I'm taking Georgia and Michigan because of their ridiculously easy schedules. I'm taking LSU. And I'm going to go off the board, and I'm going to take Oregon. For that last spot, I'm thinking you could go Oregon. You could go whoever wins the ACC, which I think Florida State's going to lose to LSU. So I think even if they win the ACC, I still don't know that they're going to get in the playoff. Or I could take Texas, which I just told you a few minutes ago. Like they're going to lose a couple of games because, just because they will. So I'm going to put Oregon in the last spot. I feel like they'll get through the Pac-12 with 1 loss, and that'll hopefully put them in. And I think LSU has a great chance. Like if you're asking me, who do I like to win the title? Like I really like LSU. But this is, I think, Michigan's best team with Harbaugh. So Michigan's going to have a hell of a chance.
Yeah. Last year, the 14 playoffs. So, the urgency of all the games after this season, it's not like it's not going to be there, but it's just not going to be the same. So, I would enjoy it this year
Right.
because, there's going to be some games next season where you get to like November and it's going to be like, oh yeah, they're playing this team, but they'll both probably be in. So, so we'll
Right.
see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would just tell people just enjoy it, while it lasts, because after this year, it's not going to be the same ever again.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot less variance. You're not going to. Look at it this way: Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama are going to be in the playoff every single year. So that's what we're looking at. They're going to be in the playoff every single year, regardless. So just you guys complaining about, oh, it's the same teams in. Get ready for the same teams being in. And it'll probably be LSU and Clemson will probably get in every year too. Notre Dame will probably get in every year. You're gonna have this. You're gonna have about. I think you'll have about 8 or 9 teams. It'll be the same every year, and then it'll be the other 3 or 4 spots that'll you'll get some new teams in every year. There's a couple things though that kind of number one are pissing me off. Well, pissing me off, annoying me. Number one, could we slow down on Deion Sanders in Colorado? They're not going to win any games, guys. Like, they're not going to be bowl eligible. That team is not going to win 6 games after we just turned over the entire freaking roster. So I was looking at this ESPN college football preview, and it was like most interesting games to watch this year, and it was like TCU against Colorado, and I was like, okay, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That game is complete nonsense. TCU, okay, hopefully they'll be somewhat like they were last year, but Colorado is not going to be good, guys. How exciting is it to watch a game where the only thing interesting about it is the sideline shots with Deion Sanders wearing a cowboy hat? Like, I'm sorry, like at a certain point, the team has to be good enough for me to give a shit. So it just bothers me that we're going to go crazy and give all this attention to Colorado. And it's like, yeah, but they're not any good. Like, why would I watch any one of their games? They're going to get destroyed against any good Pac-12 team. If they win 3 games, I'll be impressed. So it just you have to cross a certain threshold to be good enough to be on my television. That's how I look at it. Like, maybe we'll find in the fourth quarter they're playing a tight game with somebody. They're playing a tight game against Arizona State, and maybe somebody will be interested, but people don't watch the Pac-12 anyway. Yesterday's game between USC and Fresno State was on the Pac-12 network, which isn't on most cable. It's not on most cable packages. So nobody watched it. It's like, what the hell's going on? The other thing is that I'm really, I complain about this every year, and I'm so tired of it. If I hear one more person when the college football playoff committee gets together, it's usually, I think, October, November, whenever they start releasing rankings, and everybody bitches and moans, oh, it's a joke, it's a fraud, they don't know what they're doing. If you're doing that, I'm coming after you on this podcast, because it's absolute nonsense. You guys all bitched and moaned. Oh, you don't ever put the little guy in. They put Cincinnati in. You all complained when TCU wasn't in the top 4 in the first rankings. TCU lost their conference championship game and got in anyway. Okay? So I don't want to hear it. The committee does a fabulous job. They get the right 4 teams in every single year, even though I don't see any reason to put Cincinnati or TCU in, because they're never going to win the championship. So now I'm glad that when we get 12 teams, we can dispense with all that nonsense. Now, granted, it'll still be ridiculous, but at least it'll be talking about the 12th team and not the 4th team. But it's absolute nonsense. Oh, they deserve it. Well, you know what? I want the best 4 teams in. I don't give a shit about they deserve it because they won their shitty conference. So I'm really looking forward to that absolute nonsense, because it's so ridiculous. The arguments against everybody are absolute nonsense. And when there's a 12-team playoff, we're going to get we're going to get 4 or 5 SEC teams in every single year when we have the 12-team playoff, guys. Get used to it. Yeah, and you want Well, yeah, you want us to. You got to put TCU in, even though they're playing all these close games against these teams that aren't ranked in the top 25. But you got to put them in. It's just like, what are you guys like? Yeah, TCU's a fun story, but give me a break. They're one of the best 4 teams. Everybody's gonna go, well, yeah, they beat Michigan. Give me a break. Like, seriously, you think like TCU basically did everything they could do? Michigan played one of the worst games they've played in I don't know how many years, and they still had the ball with a chance to win the game at the end. So, don't try to sell me on TCU's fantastic and all of this nonsense. I don't buy it. I don't know who the Cinderella is this year that everybody's going to try to prop up and tell me how good they are when we know they're not. So, yeah, I'm tired of it. I'm attacking these people who do this. Enough is enough. Like, stop bitching about the committee. The committee's doing just fine. It wasn't a travesty when TCU didn't get in the top 4 the first weekend of the rankings because they kept winning. And you know what? They got in anyway, even though they lost their conference championship game, which you guys have told me is really important. It's the most important thing. You got to win your conference. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in. Well, 2 teams got in last year. They didn't win their conference. So, it's a bunch of nonsense. But that being said, I'm looking forward to a great season. Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, I think that I think you've got to give. I do think you have to give them a little bit of time. The West Coast, they don't have the same big bodies that they have in the South. Texas and Florida. I just don't. You don't have the same guys. I think you got to get. It's going to take. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe over the season, the defense will get a little bit better than it was last year. But that being said, they're going to the Big Ten next year, so they need to get that fixed. Because if there's one thing Big Ten teams will do, they will push you around if you're not ready to play. So if you don't have your act together, teams. I'm not. I don't think Iowa is any good, but Iowa and Wisconsin will cause you some problems if you're not physical on defense. And you don't get to play all these games on the West Coast where it's just a track meet, and that's all that you're doing. So I think it's going to be an issue, which is why I think the Pac-12 is just going to be fascinating because I think the top 4 teams, I think they all could beat each other any week, wouldn't matter. I think that it's going to be tremendous coming down the stretch there because all those teams have just they're very closely matched. So one thing goes the wrong way, one turnover here or there could basically make the entire conference. But yeah, I'm a big I really like LSU this year. I think Brian Kelly's fantastic. I don't know. I don't think that's news to anybody. But I think LSU has a chance to be really, really good. And I hope. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be fun. That's next Sunday night. And I think, I'm definitely going to watch Alabama and Texas, because you got to see, Texas is going to be really annoyed that they lost to them last year. They should have had them. And the game's in Alabama, though. So it's going to be a big test for everybody. Alabama's got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. They still haven't announced the starter yet. And, Texas has to play to their talent for the first time. And that's the other thing. Texas and Oklahoma, they're used to a conference where teams don't really play great defense, and they're about to go to the SEC. So, they need to I think Texas needs to win 9 or 10 games this year. Otherwise they're going to be looking about, do we keep Steve Sarkisian or not? Cuz they're going into the other conference. You can't, if they suck this year in the Big 12 and they underachieve, 8-4 isn't going to get it done. So we'll see how it goes. What do you think of my playoff picks? Yeah, and Michigan needed a last second yeah, Michigan needed a last second field goal to beat Illinois. So last year. So it's yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, like don't even bother looking at Michigan until November cuz it's just an absolute joke. Georgia, I mean Georgia at least has to play. I think they play Ole Miss and Tennessee. So I mean, it's not a the whole thing isn't a joke, but the first 4 or 5 weeks are a joke. So yeah, I just think that you know, but Georgia again, like Ohio State, you know, Alabama, they're trying to figure out their quarterback. So they've got to you know, they got to work to that's an issue for them that they're going to have to work throughout the season, and we'll see where they end up, but I just think, you know, you're picking teams. Georgia's is the safest bet. You know, and I'm not. By the way, I'm not flip flopping on the schedule thing, guys. The schedule, like, don't talk to me about the schedule in the NFL. In college football, the schedule is pretty much everything. So it's completely different because the level of talent in college football, there's a wide gap between the good teams and the not so good teams. Like it's a different level of athletes. In the NFL, it's pretty even. So that's another pet peeve of mine. When we watch these shows and they just pull up, oh, let's pull up the team schedule and just go, hey, this is a win, this is a loss, this is a win. I mean, can we do anything better than that? Are we so lazy that all we're going to do is just pull up the schedule and go wins and losses on it? I'm exhausted with the entire thing. I don't want to hear about it. And when shows start bringing up, oh, let's look at their schedule, I'm turning them off. So yeah, you know, just let's see. I mean, interesting games. Like, I mean, I think you know, LSU Florida State should be interesting. I think Alabama Texas will be. I think Clemson Florida State will be a really interesting game. It's about a month from now. You know, I think like I said, once you get to mid October, every week there's going to be a good Pac-12 game. So that's gonna be interesting. Um, you know, later on in the season when LSU plays Alabama, obviously, and then you know, Ohio State, Michigan, Thanksgiving weekend. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a really interesting season. I think there's less clear cut as to who the best team is this year, and there's obviously no great teams, and so I think it could make for a really interesting, you know, especially last couple of months of the season. So, anything else before we get out of here? Yep. I saw the first episode. Well, it's funny. I'm looking at my YouTube channel right now, and there's a video came up. Everything Netflix missed about Florida. So I don't, you know, I listen. I like, yeah, I like the Untold series, but I don't think I don't think it's great for accuracy. Like, you know, the Tim Donaghy one had all kinds of stuff missing or not correct in it, and you know, not that it wasn't entertaining, but I think we're using the term documentary like as a catch-all when a lot of these things are not documentaries. They're not interested in the truth. They're just interested in the, you know, what works good for a you know, something you can put on Netflix. And so I think we're gonna have to start changing things around because, you know, Ken Burns says, like, you don't interview the subject when you're doing a documentary. You interview everybody else, you know, to get the whole story. Like, that's the whole idea, is to get the factual story, get the facts. And I don't think that's not happening in some of these documentaries. And even though some of them are very good, The Last Dance was very good. not exactly telling you the whole story. But anywho, all right. So I think we'll get out of here. We'll definitely try to be back next weekend to preview the NFL and talk about some college football. Probably we'll probably do it on Labor Day. Probably, if we're both available, that'll probably be what we'll do. All right, folks. Everybody, take it easy. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and have a great night.